tonight, of course, one of the big seasons right now, and it's in season, is apples. So I've got 4 different recipes I picked out for you. One of them, obviously, a lot of people have already voiced that it's one of their favorites. They love it, and that's the apple dumplings. But we're going to start off with pork chops with apple. Apples go really good with various meats, but especially with the pork chops. And then we'll do the apple dumplings after that. After that, we're going to have apple squares, which is basically like an apple chest bar type of dessert. And then we're going to end off with apple crisp. This is another staple in this area especially. It's a very wonderful dessert, especially during the wintertime. It starts getting a little cooler and stuff. Nice hot dessert goes really well. And this one is really simple to put together. It's basically just throw everything into the pan and let it heat up in the oven for a little while. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with our pork chops with apples. Now I'm using just some boneless pork chops. Now, you want to go ahead and have your skillet heated up on high, because what you're going to do is you're just going to sear the outside of this starting off. Obviously you don't want to burn it, but you want to sear it, quickly, just to help the seasons and stuff really sear into the meat there. And we're going to pull that off to the side as we put the rest of the ingredients in and cook it separately. Okay, so starting off, we're going to take some sage, which I just use regular old ground sage to go with that. And then you want some coarse ground salt. Now you can use sea salt, you can use kosher salt, whichever your choice is, but you don't want to really use the table salt in it because you want the texture in it. It's just like if you ever had a steak that's really heavy seasoned on the outside, that's what we're going to be doing with our pork chops tonight. Okay, then of course I do the same thing with the pepper. I don't like using the fresh ground pepper. You can use that, but it has a tendency of falling off in the pan, and you don't really taste that in the meat as you're cooking it. Okay, so what you want to do is grab you a little bit of olive oil. Go ahead and put it in the pan there. And you want to take your pork chops. Now if you want to use the bone in, that's fine. I just prefer, well, especially for tonight, I use the boneless because we're cutting it up for samples, so it just makes it easier for us. But you want to make sure and give it a fairly decent rub on both sides. Now it's going to be thick on there. Now, if you don't like sage, it doesn't actually have a very strong sage flavor, because you'll see why here in a second as we're cooking this down, because we're going to be cooking this in some apple cider. And the interesting thing is when you mix these ingredients together, it doesn't have a sage flavor and it doesn't have an apple flavor necessarily. It gives it a whole new flavor when all the seasons and everything mixed in. Like I said, you want to just make sure and just sear that in on both sides. You're looking about 3 to 5 minutes starting off. Let me change gloves here, especially after handling the fork. Okay. You want to go ahead and grab you something, a plate or a dish, because once that is finished searing, we're going to put it off to the side as we begin the rest of it. So what we're going to need is some red onions. Now the red onion goes really well with apples. I don't know if y'all have ever tried that before, but they cook really well and it has a sweet flavor when it cooks down with the apples. And so you won't have that real strong onion flavor as you're cooking this down too, because I know a lot of people here don't like strong onion flavor. Once this cooks down, you don't have to worry. You won't have that problem with this. Now you want to cut this fairly thick after you finish removing the skin from it, of course. So about 1/2 inch, like so. Okay. As you see, I'm searing it enough just to get it a nice golden brown on the one side. And you can tell as you start seeing that white, coming up the edge, that's when you know to go ahead and turn it. And as this is cooking again, I'll see it come up. There'll still be a pink line come through the middle. That's perfectly fine, because we're going to, after we finish searing it, we're going to pull that off and we put the rest of the ingredients in. Then we're going to throw that back in with the other ingredients and put a lid on it and let it finish cooking and bring it up to temp. Okay, so after we've cut the onions, we'll go ahead and just set that off to the side. I'm going to grab a couple apples. Now I'm using the Granny Smith here. You can use Golden Delicious. They work really well with this. The Gala apples work really well. I've had those with this recipe as well. And I mean, you can experiment with the other ones. There's somebody who's asking me about the Fuji apples. I like Fuji and the Red Delicious apples by themselves, not so much cooking with them. Okay, and as you can see, I love making a mess when doing this with the apples, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut. You don't actually have to worry about coring these if you don't want to. I always just cut it around in quarters like that. And you cut around the core itself and the seeds. And you want these about the same width as you did the red onions, about 1/2 inch. Okay. I'm only doing half here since I've using one steak. There we go. Now the recipe actually calls for you to go ahead and clean out the skillet and redo it. I actually like using the apple cider to deglaze this pan. I mean, if you want to, you can clear it out, because some people think, there'll be extra season, extra flavor, and which, yes, there is. So you can actually wipe it out and start with a clean pan, adding the oil, doing it that way if you prefer, because there will be a slight difference in the flavor. But as you do this, deglazing it helps all the flavors really merge in together a lot better. So you want to throw the onions down in there. And obviously the red onions is, it'll take those a little bit longer to cook, but that's okay. Just break them up, going down in there. And you want to make sure and have a dish that has a cover for it, because you do want to cover this in order to get the pork chops to really cook through, because the steam helps to cook it top and bottom as it finishes cooking there. So all I'm going to do is kind of put that off in the side there. And I want to turn the temperature down to about a medium-high. Okay, and just cover that. And you're looking about another 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how thick the pork chops are. Now, it also depends. If you like yours well done, go ahead and go a full 10 minutes. If you like yours a good medium, go ahead and just go to 5, and it should be fine.